giving your audience actionable pathways that create impact. I think that it's the piece of most campaigns that's missing, that people are trying to break the nut of and figure out, how do I create a pathway? We need the facts, we need the emotion, but then it's the action. And how does the communications team and the communications functions fit into driving the action?
I'm Eric Ressler.
I'm Jonathan Hicken.
And this is Designing Tomorrow. So today we have a very special guest, Saralynn Finn, in the studio in Seymour Studios. I think you are our first non-Jonathan Designing Tomorrow podcast in the studio. Welcome, Saralynn.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. It's a beautiful day in Santa Cruz.
It really is. So we have a really exciting topic today. A little background for our listeners. So Saralynn and I just got back from Skoll World Forum. Ideas are buzzing. Saralynn co-hosted panels with me and others and came to me with this topic that I kind of instantly gravitated towards. So today we're going to talk about why feelings don't drive change. Pretty controversial take, Saralynn. Can you back it up?
We don't shy away from these.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and what drove you to this point of view, and then we can kind of break it down for our listeners.
Thank you. My career has spanned a number of different issue areas in mission-driven work. And one of the things that I got the opportunity to do at the forum was to speak on a panel about driving narrative change. And the format that we chose as our metaphor for that discussion was the head, the heart, and the hands as aspects of driving campaigns. They're all important, right? A lot of campaigns tend to over-index on the head and the heart. And instead, we need to focus more on the hands, which is action.
Okay, so let's break down. I love this metaphor, the head, the heart, and the hands. And I have ideas around how I think about those different parts and how they relate to comms work and how they relate to brand. But let's try and kind of break down what are the things that fit into those buckets a little bit. So let's start maybe with the head. What's in the head? Are we talking about stats? Are we talking about facts and figures? Is this the logical part? Is that what the head represents?
Yeah, the head is the logical part. It's probably your program officer who gives you a 25-page white paper and is like, could you put this on our website?
Yeah, as a PDF you can download.
As a PDF. Right. And of course, that 25-page impact report or, summary of activities is really important.
Yeah.
It backs up the work that you're doing. It demonstrates that this is effective and is the grist of the work. But facts aren't enough to drive change.
Yeah. Okay,
right?
So the head metaphor here is mostly about information, facts, statistics, even the scientific element of it.
Yes.
Let's talk about the heart. So the heart is the feeling organ, right? This is where the emotional element of it. Is this where impact storytelling fits? Tell me about how you think about the heart.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, the heart is the filmmaker who comes to you with an incredible piece of content about your issue area and says, I think this is aligned and I'd love to do work like this with you to get information out about either the toll of your impact on communities or the opportunity to, create the outcomes that we're all looking for.
Okay, so what about the emotional toll, for example? When we're talking about, the worst part of this in social impact comms is oh, look at these poor people we have to save, the poverty porn.
Yes, or, sea turtles with soda can things around their neck.
So when we're tugging on people's heartstrings, that's kind of what we're talking about here. And there's many methodologies that we use. Sometimes those are used responsibly, sometimes maybe overused or not used responsibly, but that's the second bucket. So what are the hands?
The hands are giving your audience, whoever your audience might be, and we can get into that more a little later, actual actionable pathways that create impact. So what is actionable? Attainable actions that can then create real impact in the issue area that you have, right? And so your audience may be broad. It could be asking a whole group of a whole legislative, constituents to contact their lawmaker to drive an action.
Yep.
Or it could be much smaller, right? It could be a small group of donors who have the power to make an impact, to act.
So what I'm hearing here is that this is where the action actually happens, right? This is the modality or the methodology that will actually create the change in the world, which so many times does happen through government programs or change, but not always.
Right.
You mentioned like a dinner with 10 donors who might fund a new initiative could be the outcome. But so what I'm hearing you say here, well, first of all, when you did this panel, you shared with me that you did a breakout session afterwards, and it broke into these three, and the hands which you led was by far the most well attended. Like, why do you think that is?
I think that it's the piece of most campaigns that's missing, that people are trying to break the nut of and figure out, how do I create a pathway? Because this is going to be unique to your organization and its size and its influence. It's going to be unique to your overall organizational budget, but also to specifically this campaign or this issue area's budget.
Yeah.
And we need the facts, we need the emotion, and those are kind of somewhat written into the fabric of what most social impact organizations are already doing, right? They understand those pieces because they're often programmatic.
Right.
But then it's the action, and how does the communications team and the communications functions fit into driving the action?
So your point of view on this at the end of the day is that the head and the heart are kind of known entities, and people are mostly doing that. Maybe not always well, but kind of expect that that's going to be part of a campaign. But that the hands is where people are falling the most short in the space, generally speaking.
Yes, and have so many questions and failures, frankly. It was really humbling. I felt really moved and humbled by the fact that people were willing to share their failures. One, leader shared that he finally, after 6 years, figured out that his organization needed to get really clear on his audience so that then he could target them with the action. And he said he spent 6 years struggling to figure out how to move the needle ultimately.
Okay, so I think we'll spend some time kind of breaking down how campaigns actually work, I think, is part of this. But I almost want to zoom out just for a second and talk about, I hear a lot of orgs say they need to make their communications better. And like, what does that mean, right? Like communications is, or marketing, like choose your term, right? But your organization's ability to have some kind of narrative, create some kind of change, run some kind of campaign, reach the people that you need to reach with your story, whatever it is. And what I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about, because I think you have a unique vantage point on this. You've worked at a number of different orgs in the social impact space and outside of the social impact space, but always in some sort of calm seat, right? So you have a vantage point that I don't have, in that you've been the insider working with agencies or just working with the internal team to try and figure out like, okay, leadership wants this, or we decide this, but we have to at some point actually turn that into a campaign, into an action that we're accountable for. So like, give me a glimpse into your vantage point from various organizations, and like, how does that happen on the inside? Give me some stories. Give me some examples.
Oh, okay. Well, I think there's always the evergreen, we should do some socials about this.
Yes.
I mean, I think you've probably been approached by brands who have had that as the answer to why they're engaging you, right?
Yeah, all the time. Like, oh, we want to just like boost our social presence, or oftentimes because we do so many identity and branding projects that then of course should inform the social plan. And we find that just, and no shade to orgs, are doing their best out there, but so much it's just so reactive. And it's like, oh, this thing's happening, make sure that goes out on socials too. And I'm actually not like a huge fan of just like super dialed editorial calendar style socials. Like, I think it's good to have some just like play and opportunistic approach to social. But if it's always reactive all the time, there's no coherent strategy. And again, to your point, there's no like, what's the point of this even? Is it awareness? Is it vanity metrics, more followers, more engagement? There's some value in that inherently, but at the end of the day, like, for what point? Like, what's the reason at the end of the day? So yeah. Give us more though. I want to hear more stories.
Yeah. I think back to some of my work at Represent Us. I was brought on to help launch a short film with the pop icon Sia, which was a really exciting opportunity. And the goal for that campaign was to use healthcare and people's experience with the broken healthcare system in the United States as an entry point to fighting corruption and demanding that we get money out of politics, which I think we can all agree it's necessary. But at the time, the organization didn't have a real strong call to action beyond the just join our list.
Yeah.
And we had a really exciting campaign. We had the organization's best performing post in Instagram history up to that point, because we did the first collab post with someone who has a lot of followers.
Huge platform.
I don't keep numbers in my brain, but I want to say like 14 million at least.
Many. Yeah.
And it was super exciting. We ended up getting 30K new to list, which I think most organizations would be thrilled about as an outcome, right? And it was successful. That was a successful campaign in terms of it had an impact in growing the audience, growing awareness, but it wasn't helping healthcare in America.
Yeah, right. So
at least directly.
Not directly.
And not at that point.
So we just did an episode a couple episodes back about me making a case for visibility being really important.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're saying visibility isn't important here, but are you kind of saying awareness campaigns are just bullshit? Like,
No. Awareness campaigns are so important.
Okay.
But once you get awareness, what are you doing with it?
Then what? Awareness and then what?
Awareness and then what? Okay, so you have 500,000 followers now. Amazing.
Yeah.
What do you want them to do?
Why
are they there?
Yeah.
Are they there to get angry about a topic?
Yep.
Are they there to get excited about a topic? And then what are they doing with those emotions, right? So we can't stop at once we understand the problem and then we have an emotion about it, we have to use our hands to do something. Otherwise, I think it's not a great outcome.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I do see this a lot of times when people approach us and they're like, hey, we want to make our comms better, or we want to do a campaign about this. And I'm always like, great, like let's hear about it. Like, tell me about what are the outcomes that you're hoping for in this campaign, and like how, like, it's almost like campaigns need their own little mini theory of change.
Absolutely.
And I think oftentimes that is very lacking. And I've been very lucky to work on campaigns and alongside campaigns that have had incredible outcomes where like bills have been passed, like real social impact has happened. And unfortunately, I've also been part of campaigns where like we get to do really cool creative and strategic work, even foundational work. But because our focus as an agency is not on like running campaigns and the nuts and bolts that really are important, the hands work even, sometimes, and I don't think these are exactly the same, I call it the lever pulling work. There are levers that have to be pulled, and there's strategy that has to, like, those levers need to like lead to. And all this time, energy, effort, money goes into these campaigns, and there was never a like clear outcome or goal in the first place. Or the goal is there, it's very aspirational, but there's no logical plan to get there.
Right.
So like,
right. There's no logical plan. And what I see fail in the logical plan often is either the budget is approximately 50% what it should be to reach that goal.
Yeah.
And, that can be an organic, budget. It doesn't have to be a paid budget.
Right.
And I am someone who believes in the power of organic social. And I've seen incredible things happen with absolutely zero ad spend.
Yeah.
Or there is a misunderstanding of where the influence actually lies to create, that lever to pull.
That part I think is really important. So one thing that I've noticed is that certain types of orgs are well fit or have the right conditions for the mix of luck and skill and all of that to come together for a campaign to be successful. And some orgs want to do a type of campaign that they're just not very well suited for.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear, like, you've been in a number of different situations, number of different types of orgs, from like, very grassroots to like grass tops to like behind the scenes kind of advocacy. Is there like a right sized or right approach campaign for different types of orgs? Like, how do you think about that when you're consulting or when you're in-house? Like, what are the conditions and the raw ingredients that you're looking for to put together?
Oh my gosh, there's so many options here. And I'm thinking about the 2020 election because at that time I was both running a national social campaign, organic social campaign to get the word out about the integrity of vote by mail.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was also working with election officials in local jurisdictions to run their own campaigns and advising them about best practices in kind of reaching voters. So we had really different scales and scopes of those campaigns, and really different tactics worked, right? Yeah. At the national level, we worked with coalitions who were engaging celebrities. Mm-hmm. That wasn't our role. Our role was to kind of be the nerds and the wonks of like, vote by mail has been happening since the 1800s, the Pony Express. This is not a new thing. Yeah. Trust us, we know how to do this. And then it was the same message, but with really different messengers at the local level, right? The folks at the local level wanted to see their election official that they had known, right, for a long time. She'd probably been doing that job for 15, 20 years. Yep. They wanted her to say, folks, come on. I've been doing this for a long time. I know how to get your ballot and I know how to count it, and everything's going to be safe. So I think of that as like an example of it's the same message, but with really different types of narratives around it and different ingredients. Like, we didn't have a, U.S. Postmaster come out and talk about vote by mail. We had some snazzy national 2020 hip graphics and kind of a style. And then for the election officials, it was really important that that person be someone that they recognize from their community, from church, from grocery store, right? Out in front and representing that message.
Hey friends, real quick before we continue today's episode. I'm Eric Ressler, founder and creative director at Cosmic. Cosmic is a creative agency purpose-built for nonprofits and mission-driven organizations. For the last 15 years, we've helped leaders like you nail your impact story and sharpen your strategy. But we're not here to just leave you with a fancy slide deck and a pat on the back. We roll up our sleeves and help you bring our ideas to life through campaigns, creative, and digital experiences. Our work together helps you earn trust, connect deeply with your supporters, and grow your fundraising and your impact. If you value the thinking we share here and want it applied to your biggest challenges, let's talk at designbycosmic.com. All right, back to today's conversation. So the messenger specifically matters a lot.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about hands here, right, this is in the hands category at some level. What I'm hearing you say is that, like, to take it back to our metaphor at a high level, we're not saying head and heart don't matter at all.
Yeah.
Those things are actually probably really crucial to get well. But if all you have is a strong head, then all it is just facts, 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 and facts don't change minds. They don't move people. If all you have is emotion, you can get people to feel something, but then they just go back to their everyday lives and no change happens.
Yes.
If you combine both of those things, now they're informed and emotive and still not doing anything. So the hands part really matters. And I think, you mentioned at one point early in our conversation, documentary films. This is a proven way to inform and engage people emotionally on a topic, to get them to have empathy for someone who's not like them, or someone who is like them going through something. And to get people to really be really heavily primed to take action. But then so many documentary films end when the curtains close and you go back home and nothing changes.
Yeah. Or I saw a documentary film in the theaters recently and I wrote a LinkedIn article about it. Folks can go check it out. And it ended with a QR code that took you to a website to join a list.
Yep.
To eventually take an action.
Yeah. Have you gotten an action email yet?
I have gotten an email. There was not action.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Which, Right. Like we all need to grow our base. We all
Yeah.
need to grow our list. But I just see so many times that I want to do something about what is messed up in this world. And I love that I get to do that with my job. But I want to do more. My neighbors want to do more. My friends want to do more. And I think climate's like the best example of this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've worked with some organizations that are really trying to move the needle on climate with their brands. Like, Can you tell me about kind of how you've seen that go? And are they moving towards action, like actionable, impactful action for their audiences?
Yeah. Well, so I would say any systems level issue, climate being a classic case, this is hard, right? Because change happens in decades or centuries, even at times, right? That's like incremental, and like incremental change isn't sexy. Like people don't want to fund it. People don't. And with climate specifically, this is starting to change, but it's this kind of like, first of all, I think a lot of the climate messaging has been, in hindsight, not well done. But also it's this kind of like looming thing that's not here yet. Like that's the meta narrative around climate. It's coming. It's coming. Trust us. It's coming. But now like we're starting to see like, no, it's here, right? Like natural disasters, like the data and the science is not just theoretical and hasn't been for quite a while. More and more people are feeling the lived negative consequences and impacts of climate change, right? So maybe that's going to change things. And we're talking right now in the midst of, not to make this political, like a major geopolitical event where, you know, the world's oil supply is held up between like two crazy regimes.
Yep.
So I was actually just talking with someone in the climate space today who's like, that sucks. And there's a window of opportunity to remind people why renewable energy and clean tech is so important. It's not even just about climate change. It's also about resiliency and about affordability, right? And the good news, and it's unfortunate we had to get here, is that like the economics are going to win here, and like it's going to happen quickly. It's just like, it's a shame that it got to this point, right? And I'm a climate optimist amongst all, and I say that knowing that there's still a lot of work to do and a lot of people are going to suffer before we're on the other side of this, whatever that even looks like. To answer your question directly though, yes, I've worked on many brands in the climate space and helped them with identity work, with messaging work, with campaign work as well. And I think the thing that can be hard, and I feel this as a major supporter of climate, is like, what can I as Eric do for climate, right? I can sign petitions. I can vote blue in California, right? You know, I can choose who I vote for, right? So it's like, what agency do we have? And I think part of the job of a campaign, especially for an issue like climate, is to make people feel like they can do something and it's going to actually matter. And like, can we even just start there?
Yes. I mean, I think that's for any of these big systemic issues that we're facing, right? Our crisis in democracy and the fact that our government doesn't feel representative for most people. Healthcare and, you know, a myriad of health issues where people feel, you know, like their healthcare isn't really working in their benefit. International development.
Yeah, fair.
Right? Like,
I would add like mis and disinformation to that.
Yeah, economic equity, you know, having opportunity be equally available to people. So do we think there are actions people can take? Like, I mean, I've designed some pathways that feel important. You've probably been a part of being a thought partner on some pathways that feel important.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like sometimes, and I'm speaking now from the vantage point of like a creative partner, not an individual.
Yes.
Because I actually feel like the way that I feel like I contribute back most to the world is through my clients. And that's like, I'm very grateful to be able to say that and do that. I don't do as much like individual action and activism. I do a little bit, but not as much as I would if I didn't already work in this space. The times that I've felt like our work has made the biggest difference on an issue is when a bill has been passed or a meaningful bill has even been like co-sponsored or introduced when we're talking about politics. But also even when like fundraising is more successful is huge, because most of the clients we work with are not funded at the cost that they need to be to like truly make a difference.
Absolutely.
And so for me, like a lot of our work is focused on identity and like clarity and strategy and these like really fundamental upstream things that make comms better,
Yes.
that make fundraising better. But often the outcomes that I'm looking for, and this is just one way of thinking about like hands work and like making change, is like my clients can afford a comms person for the first time.
Yes.
Or their comms team of one, which is a little bit of a fallacy. We can get into that, is now a team of 3.
Yep.
Or like their annual budget is up 30% that year instead of 10% and they've been stuck. Like those are like leading signs of success for me. And is it like, does that directly create change? Not in that moment, but I know that it is creating a ripple effect of change. So like those are things like, it's a weird way of answering the question, but that's how I think about it.
Okay, so your answers kind of made me realize a pattern in my work. That is, the campaigns that have been, I think, the most effective in the hands and the calls to action have been extraordinarily timely.
Yeah.
Right? So the vote by mail campaign during the 2020 election, that had a very finite end date of success of whether or not people felt safe to vote by mail, like their vote, was going to be counted and all of that. And then when I worked with Represent Us, I also did an end of year fundraising campaign. And that was a really exciting thing to be a part of because democracy was not being well funded leading up to 2024. And I got to be a part of making sure that the organization had, the reserves that it needed to do the coalition work that it kind of set up to do. And so we ended up 5xing year over year revenue from that campaign, which was really exciting. And we did it through, we did it in a few ways. It was a really broad, integrated campaign. We tried things that failed.
As you should.
Facebook fundraisers were not happening at that time for this topic with our audience. It was our first go, but the SMS campaign was wildly successful. It re-engaged a crazy amount of lapsed supporters. I think around 11,000.
Wow.
Like became people who opened our emails and texts and, obviously had a big impact on the fundraising revenue. We also did holiday cards, which was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was like a thank you for your support this year. It was to some high touch folks. And we kind of divided the labor amongst all of the staff, which was really fun that everyone kind of got the opportunity to participate in thanking the donors for their contribution. And then we did a really snazzy impact reel for what we had accomplished that year. And then another snazzy reel. This, we kind of had been building up. I had been building up the content for this for quite a while. We did a reel about what was giving democracy leaders all over the country hope for the future.
Love that.
And kind of wrapped that up into what the 2024 goals were. And with the ask kind of implicit in that, like, we need your help to accomplish these goals and to fuel this hope, right? Because we know that hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, but it can be part of one.
It can be part of
one. And
one.
should be.
Yes.
Okay, so a couple threads I want to pick up on there as I want to try and like wrap this up for our listeners and give them some good like takeaways who are like, okay, I'm convinced, like Eric and Saralynn, like I need to pay attention to the hands in my campaigns. But aren't I already doing that? Like I'm asking people to donate all the time. Like, isn't that a hand movement? Like, what are your thoughts around like what, and this is obviously going to be really context dependent. Like if you're an advocacy-based org, you have a whole set of motions that make sense, that don't make sense if you're not an advocacy-based org. But I'm wondering if we can maybe spend a little bit of time trying to clarify, like if someone's walking away from our episode and saying like, okay, I understand that all these parts are important, but like, what do I need to do to make the hands work better? Let's break that down a little bit. Like, give me some ideas that you have around, like, maybe let me start with one and have you confirm or deny it. I think we need to be thinking about this in a like reverse engineering or reverse design motion. What I mean by that is like, what are we actually like, let's define success for this campaign. Like, what is the desired state of like this campaign would be successful if, and let's write a page out. And start big picture, right? And even like throw away constraints for a second and we can rein them in. Is that a good approach? Does that make sense for you?
Yes, absolutely. Reverse engineer. And reverse engineering for your audience is a really great idea. Here is the future that is possible with your action.
Yes. So it's like visioning.
Right.
Yeah. There's a shortage of vision in this space.
There is. Yeah. And a belief that it is possible to attain our vision, right? I see both things. I see ambition that is unmatched by scale and funding.
Yep.
Right? Capacity and funding. And I see just playing it real small.
Yeah.
And just sticking to what's worked before, without imagining, well, how could we adapt this now?
Yeah.
What's this message that this moment and this audience wants to hear, and what's possible when we give them an action?
Let's talk about the imagination part just for a minute, because I think it's really important. Like what you said about ambition not being matched with action, I think is true and a real problem. And I think it really comes down to like, it's almost like the boy who cried wolf story at the end of the day. It's like, you keep saying we can do this and we keep trying things, but I don't see any evidence that anything's actually happening. Maybe that's just bad comms. Like things are actually happening. No one knows about it. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's like things aren't actually happening. So we have to be real about that. At the same time, like I don't think, like I would encourage people to think big, right? To have a bold vision. And I think that true supporters aren't going to hold you to account on like, unless you're coming out with like, we promise this.
Yeah.
They just want to see movement.
Yes.
Right? They just want to see positive momentum.
Yes.
If you can have, in my opinion, like a strong, ambitious, magnetic vision that makes people feel like they can do something and there's some proof that you're getting there, I think that's enough.
And this is the place where you and I really agree on, is that there is a lack of transparency, right? There is a hesitancy to share information that doesn't feel important enough or isn't verifiable enough. You know, there's so many reasons that organizations decide to delay or, you know, ultimately not communicate things that are real opportunities to help their constituents, their audience, to feel invested and supported by your organization. My dreams and values and goals are being supported. And I see that in these like little updates that I get. Instead, we kind of like sanitize like a lot of the facts, a lot of the stories out of our communications. So I think that, you know, it just goes back to like being really specific about what is happening. Yeah.
I would say like one other thing to leave listeners with before we wrap up, and we've talked about this before on the show, but it's worth repeating. I look at this work as almost like science in the sense that like we do need to experiment.
Yes.
We need to have a hypothesis, right? Like let's start there. And I think what's hard about this work and why it's so important to have seasoned comms people on your team is it's hard to know when to end experiments. Because you might start an experiment in good faith and then, you know, set an arbitrary, we're going to review in 3 months and kill something that in month 4 was just primed for takeoff, right? Maybe a good takeaway is like, think about it like experiments, work with seasoned comms people either in-house when you can and or as consultants who can help you figure out how do you run experiments? What experiments do you run? What's the budget look like? How much is organic versus paid? All those kind of like fundamental handsy questions. But that you do need to try and that there is no like playbook that you can just copy and paste, right? Like you have
if only it's also context and audience specific.
Yes.
So, you know, I think that I'm not saying that this is an easy nut to crack, right?
Right.
Obviously, that's why that aspect of the panel was so well attended, because so many people are struggling with this. And my message would be to vision with all of your leaders and, you know, don't ask comms to create this on their own, but to collaborate on how people can take action.
Okay. Huge point as we wrap up. This should be not a comms only job to determine what the hands or the actions are. It needs to bubble up all the way to like deep strategic planning.
And comms needs to have a seat at that table in a meaningful way, which I see so often. Like I've been handed a campaign with outcomes that are maybe not tying back to what our mission is.
Having goals is great, but not if they're the wrong goals or unattainable. So you have to be realistic about this. Well, Saralynn, we could go on forever about this. I'm sure we will have you back on the pod at some time to dig into all things comms and brand and social impact. But this has been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Eric. It was great.
Awesome.
If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to hit like and subscribe, or even leave us a comment. It really helps. Thank you. And thank you for all that you do for your cause and for being part of the movement to move humanity and the planet forward.